Welcome. We're going to do something that we haven't done on this channel before. We're going to talk about some things that this platform might consider not brand friendly, certainly, but I think it's pretty on brand for me to talk about those sorts of things. So we're going to get into, over the next however many episodes, I got a few of them planned already, we're going to talk about my grand unified conspiracy theory. Now, I started working on this a month and some change ago. More than that, I suppose, but I started really organizing it. I've been into the kind of conspiracy scene for a while. I remember probably 5 or 6 years ago, I sat down and watched Zeitgeist. Yeah. I didn't really buy into it. Like, it's interesting ideas, nice thought experiment, fodder, but beyond that, I didn't think there was a whole lot to it. Then I started getting into some other less realistic theories, like the Philadelphia experiment, moon landing being faked. It led me down this inane rabbit hole. I don't necessarily believe these things that I'm going to be talking about. It's just for fun. Don't take it too seriously. Or do. Let me give you some context for this first video that I'm doing. This is an important setup for the rest of the series going forward. We need to talk about 3 things: aliens, time travel, and the search for more money.
The search for more money.
Now, aliens. I'm not entirely sure what to make of the alien phenomenon. Statistically speaking, yes, there's life elsewhere. Fine. How involved it would be here on Earth, I can't really say with certainty. I'm going to go ahead and claim that probably not as much as some of you might want me to think, but we'll get into that. Point 2, time travel. Well, Stephen Hawking said that someday we will discover a law of physics that prevents and prohibits backwards time travel. That's probably true. I could talk about why that's going to be its own thing. Point 3, the search for more money. That's probably the biggest umbrella over this whole concept. If you follow any of these threads, the motivation behind everything is always the search for more money. Well, okay, getting off that track, what do all 3 of these things have in common? Probably nothing, not much. But they all do kind of converge when we look at the Philadelphia experiment, which is a weird thing involving a naval ship and a crew, skeleton crew, handpicked by the Navy, mind you, and lots of weird purported claims. One guy in particular, Al Bielek, he had a whole... This dude is wild.
Hello again. This is a special recording, what we call an archives recording.
He ties together aliens.
So he did go down one of the side tunnels. It wound up in the hands of aliens.
Time travel.
In one of the time tunnel operations that he was involved in.
The search for more money. Teleportation. Government espionage. Multi-dimensional beings. Predestination, temporal manipulation, separate from time travel, but manipulating the past from the present and the future. Very strange fellow with some odd stories that I'm inclined to think, I don't know, he is telling what he considers to be the truth. It's a little too fantastical. However, I'm also inclined to think that some Philadelphia experiment goings-on purported by these claims by Al Bielek and this other fella are probably substantiated by historical fact, mostly just because of the Navy's response to the incident and attempts to investigate it. But also I think that it's important that we... Okay, let me break this down. The whole point is to concoct a grand unified theory about everything. I can't lay it out right now because there's too many factors, but we're gonna go into the Philadelphia experiment, the implications of that. which lead us to time travel, which lead us to aliens, which leads us to Roswell and how that probably wasn't aliens. It might have been some very human groups, and that leads us to ancient aliens, debunking that. I truly do not believe, despite everything that I've been saying up until now, I do not believe that the pyramids of Egypt were constructed by extraterrestrials. I don't think that's factual. However, that's another thing we'll go into. I do have thoughts about it. Also, I have thoughts on the biggest conspiracy theories of all time, including the moon landing, which is tricky, right? Because more likely than not, we went to the moon. We went to the moon, come on. But there was a lot of disinformation during the Cold War, and that needs to be looked at. And we're going to get into a lot of that, because that ties like the moon landing to Mothman, which is another topic of discussion, and ties that to Bigfoot. Bigfoot probably won't get its own episode, but I'm inclined to think that Bigfoot was a scam made by two filmmakers who thought that they could cash in on it and have been cashing in on it for quite a while. The Bigfoot story doesn't have much credibility, unfortunately. What does have credibility in a weird roundabout way is the Mothman story, because Mothman had hundreds of eyewitnesses but no physical evidence, whereas Bigfoot had 2 eyewitnesses and clear a film, like the most famous film in history, basically. You've seen it. It's that. Yeah. Anyway, we're just getting started here. I need to establish, for the purposes of this series, for the purposes of the theory, we're going to say aliens exist and have interacted with people in Earth's history. We're also going to say that their involvement in our society is not nearly as deep as pop culture and other theorizing channels might have you think. Number 2, we're going to dissect this later, but we're going to assume for the purposes of the series that backwards time travel is feasible, which I can't really explain away. That's kind of a logical leap you're going to have to take with me here. And number 3, we don't even have to assume this, but again, for the purposes of the series, keep in mind most motivation behind either concealing or perpetrating some of the events we talk about here is the search for more money. So I'm thinking next episode we're going to talk about Roswell, probably the most famous UFO incident of all time, which leads me to suspect things that tie into like World War II, technological advancements that we made around that time, around the turn of the 20th century. Then the episode after that, I want to go into my man Al Bielek a little more, talk about the Philadelphia experiment at length, as well as react to his hour-and-a-half long fever dream shroom trip of a video, which by the way is only a section of a much longer dissertation he made, disclosing a bunch of information. He talks about like aliens and time travel and laser discs planted on Earth throughout its history, and teleportation and secret time traveling societies and shit like that. It's very odd, but very fascinating. It makes for a very good story. Maybe too good of a story. But anyway, that's the introduction into this nuttiness. Again, just because I'm presenting this information to you does not mean that I necessarily believe it. Don't take it too seriously. Or do. I'll see y'all. We're gonna talk about aliens.